The Orlando Magic are sitting at 9-6 and doing some really good things. So what are the early impressions? We're joined by Mason Williams of Magic on SI today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is November 19th. It will be November 20th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Because follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to take stock of the first month of the season. We're going to be joined by Magic on SI's Mason Williams to discuss early impressions of the Orlando Magic from the new guy on the beat, talk a little about what's gone right, where this team can still improve, and what is ahead for the Orlando Magic this season. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. And you can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day thanks to the Locked On Magic daily newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Before we bring Mason in, and this episode's a little long, so I apologize for that. Before we bring Mason on, I want to just get this quick piece of news out of the way. As I was recording with Mason, the Orlando Magic practice out in Los Angeles. Wendell Carter officially listed as questionable. He participated in part of practice as he makes his return from plantar fasciitis. It's obviously going to spark a lot of debate, a lot of questions among the Magic fans, really internally among the Magic, how to reintegrate Wendell Carter back into the lineup, because Goga Bitadze has been awesome. So before we go ripping each other's throats out, trying to figure out how the Magic get this rotation settled down, take a breath. Wendell Carter's probably, I would venture to guess he is not playing both nights of this back-to-back. I'd venture to guess he's not coming back until Saturday, actually. But we'll see. He's officially listed as questionable for Wednesday's game. Feeling a lot better, clearly out on the court doing a little bit more, which is obviously a good sign. The next thing I want to say is that it is a good thing to have depth. These questions, these decisions, these debates are very, very healthy and ultimately a sign that the Magic have a lot of good players that they need to play. Wherever you fall on this spectrum, Wendell Carter needs to play, Goga Bitadze needs to play. Both are very, very good. Both give the Magic very different things. And Goga Bitadze has been awesome. He's been excellent for this team, has added a ton to this team with his above-the-rim shot blocking and ability to play around the basket that Wendell Carter doesn't always give. But Wendell also gives the Magic a little bit more shooting. So there's a lot of contours to this debate. We're going to have this debate, I think, a little bit later on in the week, dive a little bit deeper into it as well. But today is not that day. Today, we are going to talk with Mason Williams of Magic on SI, learn a little bit more about his early impressions of the Magic. We'll get to that coming up next. And I am joined now by Magic on SI's Mason Williams, the new kid on the beat, the rookie on the beat. So we have to have him on the podcast. Mason, how are you holding up with your first West Coast game?
Oh, man, I woke up late this morning and we were just talking off air. You know, I felt behind the eight ball already. Having covered Big Ten basketball games where the latest tip-off was maybe a 9:15, I have no clue what to expect for Wednesday and Thursday with the 10:30 p.m. tip-offs. But I'm 23 years old. I feel like if I'm ever going to be built for a time like this to stay up, it's now. So I'm holding up well. These first 15 games have flown by already. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, the Magic After Dark games are a lot of fun. The fans who stay up for these games will tell you that they feel so much more glorious because they're guaranteed there will be people who wake up the next day and Magic Twitter will be filled with, I can't believe I fell asleep for that game. I can't believe I didn't stay up for that game.
Right.
The Magic After Dark games are always great. We usually get 3, maybe 4 of them per year. We're going to get 2 back-to-back here on Wednesday and Thursday as the Magic take on the Clippers and the Lakers. But I want to take this moment, since we do have a little bit of time, since, the Magic are on West Coast time, and they're not releasing anything until 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's at least when they're practicing on Tuesday. We're recording this at about 3:30 Eastern time. I wanted to get your kind of first impressions of the team as the new guy on the beat, and get your thoughts on what we've seen from the Magic so far. So let me start here. You take the job, you're covering the team. What did you think you were getting into with this team? What were your expectations for what you were going to see with this team as you got started here?
When I first took the job and being a general NBA fan, like especially seeing the come up that Orlando had last year, and knowing obviously the talent that the trio of Suggs, Wagner, and Banchero had, I was very curious to see what the next steps of it were going to look like. And that was one of the things that really, really excited me about the opportunity to come down here was not only am I around the same age as these guys, but these guys are coming up in a league that is, they're trying to make their own mark. So I knew last year was kind of uncharted territory for them, and having watched the playoff series pretty intently, even though it was really hard to find some of those games as opposed to some of the other playoff series, having watched that series back, and then now confirming some of my suspicions about where this team could go when they're fully healthy and when all this young talent is on the floor together. It's been very intriguing so far, but I knew they were going to be defensive. I wondered about the offense, and I think 15 games in, we can probably still sit here and say exactly that. We know the defense is, among the league's best, if not the league's best right now, and offense is not that yet, but they're finding a way through. So I think what just really intrigued me about this whole team is the fact that young teams aren't normally this defensive oriented, and the fact that they are, and they're so connected, and it's literally the most game changing aspect that they as a team possess. That certainly caught my attention early, and that's clearly one of my lasting impressions from this first almost quarter of the season now is Orlando can hang with anybody defensively, and it gives their offense enough time to make shots when they need to. But I think we would both be along the lines of thinking that Orlando would probably would probably prefer to be a little bit more efficient offensively as a whole, but certainly they are off to a strong start considering everything that's gone on with their team and the injury situations that they're dealing with.
Yeah, and we'll definitely dive into a little bit of that as we get going here. But let's hang on the defense a little bit. I gave you some shade, and I apologize for that. With the thing on Monday, if you follow us on Twitter or on whatever the last game was, I don't remember when games are anymore, on Sunday.
Every day's Tuesday. Come on, you told me
Tuesday.
that.
Every day is Tuesday. But we knew this defense was going to be good. They're second right now in the league in defensive rating. I've been joking all day today that the Magic actually did not play good defense on Monday against Phoenix. And yet the 110 defensive rating they had would be, I think, 6th or 7th in the league. That's kind of the standard they've set for themselves and the expectation they've set for themselves defensively. We've talked a lot about this. I think we both have used the analogy that they're like a snake, just like choking a team out.
Right.
What to you makes this defense so special? Like what stands out about how they make this defense work and so just devastating?
Yeah, I think obviously I have the pleasure of sitting next to you at most Magic home games. So when we were both kind of chatting about that, I was already thinking something along those lines in my head, but I was like, man, like a snake, like they just like kind of open the jaw, and then all of a sudden they take a moment and they close on an opponent, and it's just like they bleed them out slowly but surely. And they've since gone on to talk about how they feel like they wear out teams as games go on. And we've talked about the fourth quarter defense for these guys, and it's the NBA's best. And obviously considering the context behind some of the situations, whether they're in blowout games by that time, or they're just playing a team that isn't necessarily as coherent as some of the better teams in the league this year. That all kind of plays into it a little bit, obviously. But I think what sticks out to me, and I know I've seen you talking about it on Twitter this week, but it is just the fact of the matter is the fact that once you get past Jalen Suggs, if you're able to get past Jalen Suggs or KCP on the perimeter, then you turn down and there's Anthony Black waiting for you, or there's Franz Wagner waiting for you. There's Jonathan Isaac at the rim. Goga Batadze has been a super impressive rim protector this year. And you know, there's Knicks, there's points that you can make about Wendell Carter's game when he's healthy, about some holes he might have defensively. But we were talking I believe it was Friday when Philadelphia was in town, how statistically Carter Jr. has been one of the better defenders against Joel Embiid in the NBA since Embiid has been at this all-star MVP level that we've known him to be at. Obviously, seeing the reports that are coming out on Twitter and knowing how the Sixers season has started, it's not been that sort of smooth sailing for them this year. But sticking with Orlando, it's just, I go back to the connective tissue that this team seemingly has, and it's so impressive, I think, for a team to come out of the gates like that right away. Like there's no ramping up period for this defense for it to really settle in. They've had some slow first quarters and really have improved as games have gone on. But now, as they're 15 games in, they've won 6 straight. They've held all opponents under 100 points, and Phoenix kind of pushed the limit on that last night. But they're just the connectivity that they play with, and how they seem to switch 1 through 5, how they attack the point of attack, and they swarm ball handlers and play the passing lanes and get deflections. I think there's just so many impressive elements to this defense that makes it among the league's best. And I think it's just part of the personnel that Orlando's brought in, and how they've bought into Jamal Mosley's scheme a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned the connectivity a lot of times, and I think when people watch this team for the first time, that's something that comes out very, very clearly. Last year everyone called this team like the closest an NBA team can be to a college team and a college atmosphere. Even players were saying like it feels like a college team. We're like all
Right.
about the same age. We're all still super young. We're all like playing for each other, cheering for each other, and it has that kind of vibe to it where this group, it has all kind of grown up together. I think everyone's talked about the continuity thing, and I think it can be a little overblown sometimes, but it definitely feels like this group has a lot of ownership over their results. I think Franz has mentioned, several players have mentioned this, how they remember back when they were younger, how the building wasn't for them. It wasn't rocking. They had to earn the fans. They had to earn the building a little bit too. And everyone kind of always harkens back to that and says, we were here when it was a 22-win team, when we were barely winning any games. And now we feel that, that the team does. We feel that we can win a first round. We can win a playoff series. We can earn a home court advantage. That's all part of what this team is building and who this team is. It is unique. I would say this. I've covered this team for a decade, and there's been a lot of teams that felt close, but really nothing like this. How besides just watching them play on defense, what have you picked up on how these players connect with each other and how that continuity plays out?
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point, and I see it a lot coming from college, having covered college teams the past 3 years of my life before this one, is that the way that they do succeed together and the way that they do, kind of commiserate with one another and connect and communicate with one another is very collegiate-like. And a lot of these guys are college age or just fresh out of school. And, you're talking about having 1 or 2 vets on a team, and then everybody else is 26, 27 or below. And, when you have an environment that they've, as you mentioned, you made a really good point, that they have built together as one, they've gone through the process of earning each other's trust and earning the results that have signified Orlando and the city kind of backing them and creating the environment that they've deserved. I think when it comes to how they communicate with one another, how they can relate to one another off the court, I'm sure that has to play a significant role in it, as well as that these guys all seem to get along off the floor. Whenever we're in the locker room, these guys are always having a good time, all smiles, all laughter, whatever it may be. And for a young group that, is still so infantile compared to some of these other teams around the league that have had the experience of going through now a playoff loss together, a playoff series, a 22-win season, then 34, then 47. And now, who knows what they're on track for right now, seeing as how, they're missing their best player. And they're still finding a way to come together and play like they haven't missed a beat in some aspects, just because, this is still a relatively new experience for them as well. And it's certainly a new experience for Paolo to be on the sideline. But I just think that there's a real value, and we did, we talked a ton about the continuity that Orlando's had, but Jeff Weltman has also mentioned it a ton of times that, continuity is only as valuable as the wins that it affords, right? If there's no sense in continuity if it's not garnering results, and Orlando has garnered results from it. So, and there's no real reason to kind of upend that whole spectrum if it keeps working. And so far it's kept working for Orlando. They've known that they're going to be a defensive team first and that their offense is going to follow. And as they've grown together, they've grown tighter. They've grown, a little bit more mature on the defensive end. I don't really think they get shaken by any sort of opponent that they can go up against. And we've talked about it too. Like, there's going to be some nights where, like, it doesn't matter who they're playing, their shots will start falling and they're just going to win that game by 15, 20 points. And we'll look back and be like, oh, okay, this is clearly the game where Orlando's offense flashed the true potential of what it could absolutely be. But defensively, they show up night in and night out. They've made it travel now. And I think that's something that they're really just going to have to sustain for as long as this season goes on, because we don't normally really, tracing back trends in NBA, throughout the recent period of the NBA, you don't really see a ton of drastic change throughout a season, right? With an offense or with a defense, really. Nothing drastically improves or drastically deteriorates throughout the season. A lot of that is done in the off season, and then there's just some variance in the middle. So if Orlando's offense can improve a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think also in that same vein, you wouldn't be surprised if this Orlando defense again stays top 5 all season long. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I can see on the rundown that we're going to talk about whether or not the defense can hold up. But I think that's just been so impressive to me. That's what's really grabbed my attention, is that, because of the continuity, because these guys have so much equity and time on the floor built up with one another, and they've earned the success when it wasn't coming in the first place. I think that is a big factor into why they can hit the ground running and through the first 15 games of the year have one of the league's best defenses right away.
Yeah, it really does feel like that the defense is so good that they don't even need a good offense. They just need like an average offense. They need like average shooting. Like the 5-game losing streak was frustrating because they just couldn't hit open shots. And that was just like, you can't do much of anything against, quality teams. Oklahoma City is a good team. Dallas is a good team. I think we'll get into this a little bit later, but it does feel like the Magic are missing maybe a marquee win somewhere. The teams that they've beaten, their records aren't maybe reflective of what we thought they'd be before the season. I think Phoenix is the only team they've beaten that's currently above 500. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Possibly so. I was looking at it earlier today. I think you're correct.
There's plenty of work still to do. And look, the Magic are probably in the toughest stretch of their schedule right now. I believe they play, starting with Monday's game, 9 of the 11 games on the road. Then they get a little homestand, which will be interrupted by the NBA Cup replacement games, whatever those may end up being, or the NBA Cup games. Who knows?
Who knows?
So So the Magic still have a lot of work ahead of them, but definitely off to the right start on the defensive end, which is their chosen identity. When we come back, we're going to chat a little bit more about how the Magic have adjusted to life without Paolo Banchero and begin to look ahead to how the Magic can integrate Paolo back into this new mix. We'll do that coming up here in just a moment. Let's take a quick break from our conversation with Mason to give you a quick word from our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel has so many great offers to get you ready for NFL season, for the NFL weekend, for the NBA too, with some great odds as well. The Orlando Magic currently going to face the New York Knicks, the favorite to win the NBA Cup at plus 550. Yes, even over the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 650. The Knicks are favored to win East Group A at minus 340. The Magic at plus 250, 5-2 odds that the Magic win NBA Cup Group A, East Group A. If you want to get in on the NBA Finals, the Orlando Magic currently running at plus 3,800, even behind the Milwaukee Bucks, to win the NBA championship. Something to think about as you're preparing for games this weekend. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I am joined once again by Mason Williams of Magic on SI. You can find it on the Sports Illustrated Network. I don't know what the exact website is. Maybe you could fill us in on that here in a bit. But Mason, obviously the big story for this team has been the injury to Paolo Banchero. He started off the year on such a tear, 29 points per game, career high rebounding numbers, career high assist numbers, career high efficiency across the board. It felt like he was making an all NBA leap, and then all of a sudden it stops. The Magic have to reconfigure themselves, and it seems like they found another star in Franz Wagner. Not that they didn't think he was capable of all this, seeing that they gave him a max contract, controversially to some. But what has stood out to you about how Franz has taken this step up into this more featured role?
It's funny you mentioned the controversial part of his contract. I've actually got a column coming out hopefully in the next couple hours or so from when we're recording this. Essentially taking the angle of, Franz Wagner has been worth every single penny for the Magic this year. And whether or not that was going to become so evident this soon probably hinges on the fact of Paolo Banchero's injury happening so early. But not only is Paolo's injury happening in the early portion of the year, I guess if there's a good time to have an injury, you would rather it happen now than later. But not only is that good for him to have the time for when he comes back to really ramp up and be at his full strength, all things considered, when March, April, May come around. But it's also allowed the Magic to really get I think a crystal clear picture of who they have in Franz Wagner. And that is, as you mentioned, I think another star who's 6'10", a two-way swingman. He's even more two-way than Paolo is. And as we were talking about on Twitter, I mentioned this in that column that's coming out later today, is he's legitimately one of the best wing defenders in the NBA this year. And so is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, his teammate. And then you look at the point of attack, this goes back to the defense point of attack, Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black, they're at the top of that ranking. But sticking with Franz specifically, we've seen his usage rates increase. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen. That the production that Paolo Banchero brought on a nightly basis was going to be an aggregate collective effort, but the majority, the largest ration of the load was going to fall squarely on Franz Wagner's shoulders. And when he gets a 5-year, $224 million contract extension, if he finds an all-NBA consideration in that time, I think it goes up to like 270, something like that. When you give your your supposed number 2 option that kind of money in the offseason, a lot of people are going to kind of bat their eyes at that a little bit and be like, okay, what sort of decision are the Magic making in this?
And I hate to say it, especially after his game 7, which
right.
Which,
and you
not
you
the reflection of a season, but the lasting memory before he signs that contract.
Right. The last game before that, he goes 1 for 15 in a game 7. And on top of the 28% 3-point shooting, a lot of people were probably fairly or not as to how skeptical people were going to be of it. But fair or not, there was clearly some backlash from some commentators around the league that it dominated the discourse surrounding Franz over the summer. He even went to the Olympics. He played great in the Olympics. He didn't shoot well in the Olympics. Of course, the discourse comes back. But now this year, he comes in, and now with 10 games under his belt without Paolo Banchero, I know you've written about it. I know I wrote about it today. If he is not in San Francisco at All-Star Weekend in February, something is completely wrong. If he would have to have gotten hurt, something would have had to have completely gone wrong, and knock on wood that none of that happens. But he is absolutely taken an all-star leap for Orlando in like at the drop of a hat, at the snap of your fingers. He is orchestrating the offense. He is, obviously, we've known him to be so comfortable as a driver to the rim, but he's orchestrating the offense. He's getting everybody in the right position. Now we're hearing Anthony Black last night talk about how he's stepping up as a leader, and he's getting people in the right places and making clear what he needs from his teammates when he's out on the floor. You have now almost a conundrum where you have a player that's playing like a number 1 option who isn't normally your number 1 option. And now when Paolo Banchero comes back, you have almost a little bit of a puzzle to figure out as to how you manage the load offensively when they're both on the floor, because it's not like you can take Franz out of possessions, because he clearly is showing you right now that he is capable of handling number one option type usage, number 1 option type scoring. He's been at the top of opponent scouting reports now for 2.5 weeks, and we've seen him put up 8 straight games of 20 plus points. I think it's 3 straight games of 30, if not, or it's like 3 and 4, something
4 or 5 or something like
something
that.
ridiculous like that.
It's something that even in Franz Wagner's really good first 3 seasons, he's never done any of this before. Like, he's shown hints of this. Like, honestly, like, if you look back at like Franz's 30-point games, he's had a few against Milwaukee, but a lot of, like, I think the biggest complaint was like, oh, he scored 32 out of this big breakout game, but it was against Detroit. No offense to the Pistons. Last year's Pistons were bad. Like they're bad. We can say that. It was against Detroit, or it was against Washington. It was against teams at the lower rungs of the league. And like, I've joked about this a million times. Like, the mid-range is the provenance of the stars. Only like the stars can shoot mid-range jumpers efficiently enough to make it worth it. Franz Wagner did not shoot mid-range jumpers. Like, he was at the basket or 3. That was it. Mm-hmm. And to see him pull up for mid-range jumpers now, like, comfortably, and making them, it's just like, this is a new element to his game that makes all the other elements better. And we know he's someone that can fit in and play off of Paolo. And honestly, like, we were discussing this after, I think, Friday's game 2. Yeah. I think the bigger adjustment is, okay, can Paolo play off of Franz? If they're on the court together, it's not just, okay, Franz plays off of Paolo. Paolo gets his turn, gets his shots up. It's all good. Can Paolo be a spot-up shooter? And that's something that, like, out of the playoff series last year was my big thing, is they got to get someone that can get Paolo an easy shot, whether it's a spot-up 3, whether it's a look at the dunker spot. Just the way we're going to get Paolo more efficient. Paolo has really worked on his efficiency anyway. The way we really get Paolo more efficient is get him someone that's going to get him an open shot. Like, you don't, he doesn't, to get to 25 points per game. It was really just, instead of taking 2 more of those dribble pull-ups, give me an open 3. Give me an open 3 or 2. Give me a dump down to the block for a dunk, or for something, for a mid-range shot from there, or a spot up mid-range shot. That's something that perhaps Franz can do for him. And obviously, like, the Magic can run screen and rolls with the 2 of them and create matchup advantages that they like. And And it opens the door to so much more that's going to, and there's going to be, look, when Paolo comes back, whether it's Christmas, whether it's New Year's Day, somewhere in that vicinity, when Paolo comes back, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. Like the team's going to slow down a little bit to figure it all out again. But the options feel much more open for what this team is capable of doing. And like we said, the offense has always been a concern. Now they have another offensive weapon that they can use and exploit a little bit. Beyond Franz Wagner, though, who, obviously, like you mentioned it, everyone has to kind of shift and step up a role. Who else do you feel like has stood out? And, Franz is the MVP of the first quarter of the season, MVP of this time period. Who else has kind of stepped up and shown out with this added opportunity that the Magic are clearly kind of taking advantage of right now?
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss to not mention both Tristan da Silva and Anthony Black, and for two different reasons. Because I know, obviously, we're all very aware of who Jason Beattie is. Good guy, great friend of ours, does great work with the Sentinel. I think it was on the road trip where he and I were talking about, the fact that Tristan starts, but Anthony closes with this unit, right? And it makes sense because Tristan is a guy where he's playing really good positional defense for Orlando. He's 23 years old as a rookie, so he's got a ton of basketball IQ built up in his time at Colorado. With his time, just he's played a lot of games. He's played a lot of meaningful games in his career, and you want a guy like that to be able to start the game and be able to maybe provide you some spot up offense here and there. Just give you a few minutes of solid offense to start the game, and you kind of take what you get defensively with him. But when Anthony Black comes in, as he's been pretty much the sixth man of this team this year, he's always the first guy off, especially now without Paolo out. They're splitting Jalen and Franz's first quarter minutes, and it's always Anthony Black for Jalen at the first sub, right around the 6-minute mark. And then Anthony comes in and closes the game alongside Jalen, alongside KCP in Tristan's third spot, kind of as a third perimeter defender. And I think it just makes so much sense down the stretch of games because Anthony is another ball handler. He's another defender that fits into that mold, and he can get downhill and create offensively on most nights. Now, granted, he's a second-year player. His development isn't necessarily linear, and most players aren't. But there's been times this year, I think it was Friday versus Philadelphia, where both he and Jalen were just kind of struggling to get through into the defense and get to the rim and kind of create. And that's one of Anthony's biggest strengths of his offensive game. And we saw it last night in Phoenix. He dishes out, I think it was a career high 9 assists, if I'm right. And he's just getting into the teeth of the defense. Honestly,
Monday was his best game of his career. Like, I know the Dallas game was really good. I know he had a good game in Washington last year. Like, that was a complete showing from him on both ends. The playmaking, the getting downhill, the shooting was there. It was like, he was really good.
Right. And so much of his game is getting a foot or 2 feet in the lane and drawing attention and then kicking out or making the right pass. And I just think that time on the floor is so valuable for him in his second year to be closing games. Granted, we talked about the schedule and who Orlando's played. You have to play who's put in front of you, but we've not seen it yet in the necessarily more marquee games on Orlando's schedule just yet. But until you get there, you would like to see the signs of that improving right now. And clearly Orlando is getting signs of that from both Tristan and Anthony in different spurts and different situations throughout the game. But now 10 games in without Paolo, and if he's talking about wanting to be back before Christmas, whether that comes true or not, you're looking at still probably at least at minimum a month before Banchero is back, and who knows before he's actually back fully 100% and really ready to go, right? So there's going to be a ton more opportunities still for these guys to come. But I think when it comes to talking about the kind of production that they've had in his absence, to be able to get what they've got from a rookie and a second-year player, regardless of what their age is, that's been so huge for this Orlando team. And granted, they're a young team. We know that they were going to rely a ton on their youth as well. But, coming into the year, Tristan Da Silva was on the third unit. Last year, Anthony Black was on the third unit. And now these guys are getting valuable minutes night in and night out. And, there's going to be a little bit of a logjam minutes-wise for who sees what type of minutes down the stretch when Paolo comes back. But I just wanted to bring up one note on Franz. One more thing. We were talking about.
We're here for Franz notes.
We were talking about him as an offensive creator, right? As somebody that could potentially set up Paolo Banchero. Looking at his cleaning the glass page on his offensive overview page, his assist percentage this year, which the percentage of teammates made shots that the player assists on, is 28.6% this year. That's in the 93rd percentile, and that's also 10% higher than any other mark he's ever had in his career. And then also his assist rate compared to usage rate is 0.93. That's in the 88th percentile. That's also far and away the best mark of his career. So not only is he getting to the basket more, he's scoring more, he's becoming more efficient. The shot is there as of late as well, but he is another offensive creator that I think, like you said, you made a really good point. He's going to make Orlando have to learn but Paolo specifically, can he play off of Franz as the number one ball creator versus Franz playing off of Paolo as the number one ball creator? So I'll be interested to see how that goes when they are both on the floor together. But I think it all just kind of underscores that you can't say enough good things about what Franz is doing for this team right now, because my God, where would they be without him?
Yeah. I mean, look at New Orleans. You lose key players, things can go south very, very quickly. And obviously, right when Paolo got hurt, there was a little bit of a shock to the system. There was a little bit of an adjustment period.
Schedule didn't help either.
Schedule didn't help. I would say, talking about young players go up and down. Like Anthony Black has been amazing. He's been awesome. He had a really bad that last road trip. And I've kind of gotten to saying he's kind of the bellwether for whether the team's playing well or not. When he plays well, the Magic become a much more difficult team to deal with because he just can put so much pressure on teams. You look even within a game, the first half against Philadelphia, I thought Black really struggled getting downhill, getting to the basket. He comes in the third quarter of that game, immediately gets a fast break layup. They get I think he got a block or another big defensive play, got downhill to the basket again, or started a fast break. He changed that game and sparked that 18-4 run that flipped the game in the Magic's favor. Anthony Black has that power, and there's going to be ups and downs for him this year. He'll go through a shooting slump. He'll go through some struggles. Obviously the Magic will face some more difficult teams, including on Wednesday and Thursday. They'll face, they got the Knicks coming up in early December. Look at the Sixers 2 more times. Presumably they'll be together a little more figured out by then. Maybe they won't.
We would assume.
That December homestand, the Celtics come to town, the Thunder come to town, the supposedly healthier Suns will come to town. There will be challenges ahead, and obviously this Magic team they've still got to prove themselves. Cleveland, I think, is in that homestand as well. So they've got maybe not. I don't think that's till February actually. But they're one of those games. There's still a lot for this team to prove, and that's where I want to kind of take this, park this bus a little bit, and go in our final segment. What comes next for the Magic, and just how good can they be? We will get to that coming up here in just a moment. Let's take another quick break from today's conversation to tell you a little bit more about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With more than 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's really that easy. All you have to do is say Franz Wagner will score more than 25.5 points. Goga Batadze will grab more than 11.5 rebounds. I don't know if it's that high, but that's all you have to do. Put together your player grouping, put them together, see the winnings roll in. And even though there's all those 10 million members, you're not going up against 10 million members. You're not going up against anyone. It's just you versus the numbers. And what does that mean? It means you're not scrounging for prize money. You're giving yourself the best chance to win. Really, even in a group of 5 players, all you have to do is get 3 right to get your money back. And PrizePicks offers so many great deals, including their injury insurance policy, which says if a player in your pick grouping is injured in the first half and does not return, you get that pick back. It's like it never happened, and you still get the chance to win and win big. PrizePicks is a daily fantasy game that I play when I play daily fantasy. It's the easiest, most accessible game. And because you listen to Locked On Magic, you know what's going on with the Magic anyway, should give you the leg up to win your picks too. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I'm joined once again by Mason Williams of Magic on SI, the new guy on the beat. So hopefully you're enjoying his breakdown on his early impressions of the team. But obviously it's just 15 games. There are still a lot of games left. It's a long, long season. Some moments can feel triumphant. Other moments can feel very down, and the Magic have experienced all of it. Obviously, it's about what comes next. And the Magic right now are probably in one of the more difficult stretches of their schedule. It's maybe not as difficult as we thought it would be in August, considering the Knicks are still figuring themselves out. Not that they're a bad team. They're a good team. That's going to be a tough game. The we saw the Sixers on the schedule 3 times within about a month. Mm-hmm. We thought that would be a little bit more difficult than perhaps it will be. It may still be very difficult, but what is the biggest challenge for the Magic? They've obviously managed their schedule well. They bounced back from the losing streak. What is the biggest challenge for the Magic, let's say over the next month until Paolo Banchero is back in the lineup, to preserve their spot in the Eastern Conference as the 3 or 4 seed and keep themselves in position to achieve that goal of getting home court advantage?
To secure home, it's kind of backwards in the NBA. To secure home, you have to win on the road, right? And that's something that Orlando didn't do a ton of last year, and this year they're still, after last night's game at Phoenix, they've only won 2 games on the road. So they go from the high highs of the opener at Miami, where everything looks incredible. They blow Miami out of the building, on Pat Riley's night, and kind of rain on everybody's parade there. And then, Memphis happens, where it's just a wash on the second night of a back-to-back. Then the Chicago fourth quarter happens, and, Paolo gets hurt amidst all those missed shots that just piled up. And then we talked about the rest of that road trip. So I think last night you can't even underscore the value of just getting one on the road, right? That Phoenix team was missing a lot of players, but you're missing players, right? Everybody in the NBA is missing somebody right now, it seems like. So you've got to find a way to win, just blatantly, like to put it in the most simple terms. And whether that's ugly, we've certainly seen Orlando win ugly this year. Good teams have to win ugly. Whether it's going away, we've not actually seen really Orlando do that on the road much this year at all. But when you look at, I think you were correct, I'm looking at the schedule here, like something like 9 of the next 11 games, right? And I think that closes out the first 26. I remember writing before the year, like 16 of the first 26, or like 16. It's like 16 of the first 26 games of the season were on the road. That's a third, essentially, of the NBA season, minus a few games, right? That's significant in the grand scheme of the NBA standings. And for Orlando to protect home court, which they've clearly done this year, they're 7-0 at home, undefeated. You can only play 41 games at home this year. And if you're going to have the advantage in a playoff series where you're a top 4 seed and you get that pivotal game 7 at home, you have to win on the road. And I think that is going to be the biggest challenge, especially for young teams, when a team, it seems at least, when a team is so good at home and struggles on the road, it's like, okay, this team has to mature a little bit. This team has to grow up, learn the ropes of going on the road and dealing with the late nights of travel and different hotel beds every night, all that kind of stuff, whatever it may be. and that's where maybe Orlando's youth comes back to get them a little bit. Where now they've got a couple vets on the team where they can kind of rely on them to have the years of experience of doing this. But in a more basketball sense, they have to, the old adage is defense travels, and Jamal mentioned it last night. We asked him about it on Sunday before they left. That's what they're just going to have to do. This as we mentioned earlier, I don't think we're going to be seeing a drastic improvement of the offense from bottom third of the league to top third of the league by any means. But if you're gonna find shots,
bottom 10, please.
if you're gonna find shots, it's gonna be on the backs of their defense, and that they can take into any arena versus any opponent, and know that they've got a fighting shot. If their defense shows up, then they've got a shot to win. So, whether it's really once the schedule hits December, I've got it pulled up here. That homestand, that stretch of games at home where obviously broken up by the NBA Cup a little bit, but you've got Phoenix, OKC, Miami twice, Boston, the Knicks. Brooklyn looks competent this year, and you're going to have them 3 times in the span of a month, twice in their home building. So, and obviously winning at MSG is not easy. Winning at Philadelphia is not going to be easy, assuming that, like we talked about, I don't think we would assume that Philadelphia is going to stay in the bottom feeder region of the East forever. They've simply got too much talent to let that happen. So the schedule is going to tense up a little bit, and we're going to find out a little bit more about who Orlando is, and especially having to navigate probably this first good portion of it without Paolo Banchero on the floor, even if he does come back during that Christmas homestand. Like that's no cakewalk to get reintegrated back into, right? So I just really think we're going to learn so much about this team as kind of the first third of the season comes to a close at the end of it. But I think it always – I sound like Jamal Mosley, right? It's always going to go back to their defense. The shots, whether they fall or not, like the defense is going to keep them in a game. The defense is going to determine whether or not they have a shot to win. So that's what I'll be keeping an eye on for sure.
It's probably too early to ask this question then. And it certainly feels like, I'm very much of this opinion. We're still very early in the season. There's still a lot to learn, like you said. But we are roughly a month away from the opening of trade season on December 15th. It is the thing that everyone talks about in the league. You're already kind of starting to see some rumblings of what's out there. A lot of teams are looking for centers, and that is something the Magic may have available to offer. But I care less when it comes to trade season about who the Magic are targeting, especially at this point of the season, because I don't even think teams know who's available. But as we begin to think about trade season in the NBA, should the Magic be looking to add something to this group? Do they need to add something, or is the team fine? Should the team be fine holding this group together and saying whatever happens, happens? It's still a young team. It's still learning. We're not quite all in on the season yet. Should the Magic be already thinking and engaging in trade season and what they need to get even better than they are now?
Well, I think, back when, and this is going to be a little bit of probably, I don't know what the front office
be vague,
version of.
Please be vague. We're not into specifics yet. Like no one should be into specifics yet. The Magic aren't desperately trying to trade anybody. Nobody's really like, oh, this guy's available. Like, come grab him. It is something we're thinking, though, I think.
Yeah.
As we get closer to trade season, should the Magic be in the market for something? Should they be trying to go a little bit more in on this season than perhaps people think?
Yeah, I think what I was going to say is I don't know what the front office version of coach speak is, but I remember not Jamal Mosley. I remember Jeff Weltman saying at media day, like, when he was talking about the CBA and how it's going to go after everybody, and all that kind of stuff, that they're always looking to improve. That's been kind of the counter to this continuity thing. It's like, okay, you have relatively the same roster this year. You made one splash addition, if that's what you want to call Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like defensively, he's been what you want him to be, and offensively, he's starting to come around a bit. He looks a little bit more comfortable. The shots aren't there yet, but as far as like how he's fitting into the rhythm of the offense, he's certainly much further along than he was at the beginning of the year. That said, Orlando would be remiss to not, cover its bases. All 30 teams would be remiss to not, take a look, survey the league, see what's available, see what's out there. But, as I've grown a little bit more integrated into Magic Twitter, there are some voices out there that I think are of the opinion that there needs to be a lighted up microwave scorer. I don't even know. Granted, so this isn't saying these guys are available. Obviously, we know that, just prefacing it. But a la like a Jordan Clarkson, a Colin Sexton,
Go through the list. We all know it. Dennis Schroeder, Jordan Clarkson, Colin
Dennis
Sexton.
Schroeder,
There's still people
Dennis
that want
Schroeder's
Anthony Simons.
Right. Okay. You're jogging my memory on some of them. Anthony Simons, Dennis Schroeder,
Malcolm Brogdon,
Cam Johnson from Brooklyn. Yeah. Basically anybody from Brooklyn. It seems like
Cam Thomas is supposedly available as one of the rumors.
Cam Thomas, Dorian Finney-Smith. Like there are pieces that teams are going to be interested in. Right. That's just going to be the nature of it. But I think Orlando has to be careful and calculated about it, and not. And more so understand that this version of what Orlando is right now is not their final version. And I know we were talking about this in the media room Friday night after the game versus Philadelphia. When you have Paolo Banchero back and Franz Wagner is playing the way he is, and Jalen Suggs is back into an option where he's getting cleaner looks because both Paolo and Franz are able to create more spot up looks for him. And assuming that, what you're seeing from Anthony Black sustains itself in some facets. The inherent need to find a lighted up sixth man that essentially comes in and is nothing but a shot chucker is not a theory that I subscribe to, if you know what I mean. Like it's something where they have to kind of play the margins a little bit, and at least I think, this is just my opinion, and understand that whatever piece they bring in is going to have to be somebody that fits into the puzzle already. Because Orlando, as they stand, I think you would agree with this, when they are fully healthy, they are a legitimate playoff team. They are in that they're firmly in that conversation. They arrived last year, and seeing how they were playing with Paolo healthy, now seeing how some of the guys have stepped up in Paolo's absence, you assume if that sticks around a little bit, when Paolo comes back, they are going to be firmly in that conversation. And it's not like the East is full of world beaters this year outside of Cleveland and Boston, it seems. So there's a real shot to maintain a third or fourth seed for Orlando. And I wouldn't be surprised if teams came calling about like a Wendell Carter, or, if somebody wanted to see if they could, resurrect or kind of change the fortunes of a couple Magic players off the bench, or just, give them more minutes in a larger role. But I don't know necessarily exactly right now, and we shouldn't know right now, because like you said, they're not. Sure. The Magic are in no pressing need to make a move today and be like, we are so much better today than we were yesterday. Nobody is right now. That said, I think there are probably moves that they can make, but they shouldn't. How's the best way I can put this? They should not lay it all on the line for it. You know what I mean? Like they're not pushing all the chips into the middle of the table. That's not present right now. And with what Paolo, Franz, and Jalen are and what they can be this year, I really don't know if that is a need right now. Do you need another star caliber player when it seems you have one superstar, you have another budding star that is on, a similar trajectory now. And we know what Jalen can be when there's less pressure on him. Now, granted, you would like him to perform, I think, a little bit better offensively right now. Granted, given the situation that is presented to him, but he's still out there for his defense, and he has come up with big shots throughout this run. We know he's a confident guy. We know he's not going to stop taking those shots because, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. They don't want him to. He doesn't want to stop taking those shots, and he's hit them before. So there's no reason to believe that those shots should go away. So I I guess in the most roundabout way possible, I'm saying I don't know. But
yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, I like this like we mentioned, like every time we talk about the Magic's future in terms of their present as well, it feels like we're dancing around this one truth that I think makes what they're doing a very difficult needle to thread.
Right.
They are a good team. They are a playoff team. They are potentially a home court advantage team. They may not yet be a championship team, but you sort of see the path for them to get there with their two young stars. They just need to mature, get more experience, and grow. And so the Magic, like, they're trying to be both a team that's winning now. Like, anything they do it cannot sacrifice their ability to win today.
Right.
But they're also willing to let players develop and grow. Like Jalen Suggs playing point guard, that experiment feels like it's been a mixed bag so far. And if there is something the Magic should be looking to improve, it should probably still be in that range. But Orlando, I think, is very, very happy and fine to let Jalen Suggs go through some ups and downs, see if this thing can work, see if it can work in the playoffs, more importantly, and then decide if they need to actually address the issue. Anthony Black is a young player who was, put a lot of trust in him that was both earned and maybe a little bit of a risk. But they're willing to see what he can do and figure out how he fits into the puzzle. Like, are the Magic going to invest heavily in a point guard when they might feel like, at the end of the day, when we're in our final form, Anthony Black is starting at point guard for this team? That is all part of the equation. And so anything the Magic do can't just affect the short term. It has to help the long-term vision of this team too. And on top of that, like you said, Jeff Weltman said, the CBA comes for everybody. The salary cap comes for everybody. The Magic are going to be an over-the-apron team in 2 years. So they've got to be very, very careful about how they arrange their books too. They can't throw a lot of money at guys. If they've thrown some money at some of their own players, they have those trade chips in their bag now, but they can't throw a lot of money at guys to say, okay, let's push all our chips in for this year and figure out the financial consequences later. They've got to be at least cognizant of how the puzzle fits together in the bigger picture beyond this season too. And so it's not like they're throwing away this season. It's not like the season doesn't matter, but it's also not entirely about who they are this season. It's about what they do this season and how they can keep growing from it, if that makes sense. And the teams that typically make the big deadline deals are the ones that need to win immediately. And maybe the Magic could find like a deal like New York did with OG Anunoby. Maybe they could attach Cole, Gary Harris, who's on an expiring deal, and they're like and the Denver first to add a quality, like high level role player. Maybe that's the sweet spot they're looking for, but it's not so easy, and it's not so important to like make it happen this year, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I'll give especially the front office credit, because you mentioned throwing money at their own guys a little bit, right? They've still stayed for knowing the paydays that they have coming. They are still very flexible financially for what they can do. And they have that's not only beneficial for them, but that's beneficial for potential trade partners. That said, I think as I was listening to you to talk about it there, and as I was kind of rehashing what I was saying, it kind of back in my own mind, is that I don't know if there's a trade that bursts open a window of contention any more than just letting Paolo and Franz be 21 and 22 or 23, whatever Franz is now, and Paolo's 22 now.
Paolo's 22 now, yeah.
Being
old.
Whatever.
They're old, Scott, man. Time is ticking.
Oh man, don't say that, because I'm 23. So, being the window of contention is clearly coming with these guys, right? If these guys continue on the trajectory that they are, and they keep playing at the level that they have in such youthful capacities of their career, considering where they are and where they could be going forward, how much more of it can you unlock by making a huge splash deal this year? I don't know. Now, granted, the OG Anunoby deal for New York clearly worked last year, and they got burned a little bit by OG not being healthy, at the end of the year, but nobody was healthy for the Knicks at the end of last year. They were playing 8 guys, and Tom Thibodeau doesn't like his rotations anyway. So
they're playing 8 guys 48 minutes.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Somehow.
So if a deal like that exists, then I think that is where, like you said, kind of Orlando's looking to maybe swim in those waters a little bit. But whether the actual outlook of the future changes in a more positive, I guess I'm just more hesitant to think that the correct move, not only for this year and for multiple years coming, because you've got clearly a core that you are going to be here with for a while, and one that you're happy with. How you build around them for the future, you have to think about in every single move that you make right now. And obviously Orlando is going to be cognizant of that. They're a smart front office. They wouldn't be employed if they weren't. But
you'd be surprised.
Not in Orlando. I'll say not in Orlando. At least in my experience. Now I have seen some.
I'll tell you some horror stories later.
Yeah. We'll share those off. We'll share those off air. But I think in this current iteration, Orlando's front office will, like I said, cover their bases, but they more just as much as anybody are cognizant of what they have coming with this specific core. And I just don't know how much more prying open the contention window is now. How much of that's on the table for a move of that caliber this year.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. Obviously, like we've mentioned a few times, the Magic are probably in one of the more difficult parts of their schedule right now, or they've just started one of the more difficult parts of their schedule. So we're still going to learn a lot about this team. Clearly, Magic off to a great start. 9-6 is one game behind where they were last year. They were 10-5 at this point last year. So maybe some ground to make up, but they're right where they want to be in the standings, which is ultimately what matters. It's less important whether you get 47 wins again. It's more important where you finish in the standings.
Right.
Magic are right where they want to be. They're seeing the growth that they want to see. It's been a very, I would say, successful first month of the season, but still a long way to go. And we're going to see this team grow up a lot.
Long way.
Mason, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing some of your early impressions of the Magic. Where can my listeners find you if they want to read your work?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity and the time. I always appreciate doing stuff like this, and getting to know you in the media room and getting to sit next to you, pick your brain has been extremely beneficial for me. So I appreciate this opportunity. As far as where you can find my work, it's si.com/NBA/Magic. I had to pull it up to make sure, but and then my Twitter is right here on the screen. See, you're a pro at this. I'm
not a pro at this. I'm trying
to get my rights and lefts right. It's somewhere beneath me.
It's somewhere down here.
Right.
If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening,
if you're listening, which is I'm a podcast listener more often than I'm a podcast watcher. But if you're listening, it's at MVSON Williams on Twitter, X, social media, whatever the hell you want to call it. But it's right there on the screen. Just my name, Mason Williams, with an A or with a V instead of an A in the first name. I've told the story a ton of times. I thought I was super creative when I made that, like at the end of my high school days, and now it's probably not the most beneficial thing for me to be found, but maybe one day I'll change that.
I will say this: it's been interesting as I've been staring at my computer screen for the last hour. Little optical illusion. I actually really like it.
Right. I thought I was slick with it. But regardless, at MVSON Williams on social media, si.com/NBA/Magic on your desktop, on your Google Chrome, Safari, whatever web browser you use.
Wherever you browse.
And then we've also got Facebook, Orlando Magic on SI on Facebook. So give us a like there. Appreciate it always. But that's where you can find me.
Definitely check out Mason's work. He's done a great job covering the Magic through the early part of the season. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Mason.
Thank you.
I want to thank Mason for coming on the show once again. Again, you can check his work out at Magic on SI. That's si.com/NBA/Magic. Check him out on Twitter, as he said as well. He's been doing a great job covering the Magic. The new guy on the beat We haven't tased him in any way yet, but Jason and I are still discussing things that we can do with him now on the beat covering the Orlando Magic. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, again, follow me on Twitter as well at @PhilipR_OMD. Check me out on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can download this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, all the Family Stone podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. And for even more on the Orlando Magic, you can check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Follow us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And as well, check out my Patreon page where I have a video breaking down Franz Wagner's star turn. You can check that out at patreon.com/OrlandoMagicClub. That video and that article are free to give you a taste of what I'm doing on my Patreon page. Again, that's patreon.com/OrlandoMagicClub. As always, thank you for your support. As if that wasn't enough, you can now check out the Locked On Magic daily newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again for our next episode of Locked On Magic.